Mandy, and thank you. Allison, that was an amazing talk. Thank you so much for sharing. I loved it. And here's to women who love math. Okay, I am going to share my screen now, and let's just make sure everyone can see this here. All right, I think we've got it. I do think maybe I was a little bit aggressive in terms of, what I wanted to talk about today. This is by no means everything you probably wanted to know about cryptocurrency, but it does hopefully serve as a primer. So my background, I am CEO of Zag Communications. I've worked in distributed ledgers and cryptocurrency since about 2015, which feels like a lifetime. So this session is really for people, the 87% of the population that is not yet involved in cryptocurrency, has never bought it, has never used it. And among women, that percentage is even bigger. So 13% of the population overall in the US has engaged with cryptocurrency. That number is about half for women. So my goal here is to come at it from a technology perspective. I want to try to put it in context of where are we sort of historically in this shift, and give you an understanding so that you hopefully get comfortable and get to the point where you say, yes, I'd like to go explore it more. I'd like to go look into this aspect or that aspect of it more. And nothing in here should be construed as financial advice by any means. So what is cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency is digital currency. And I think it's really important to talk about, how it's created and what it's used for today and what it can potentially be used for tomorrow and in the future. There are over 10,000 different cryptocurrencies that can be bought and sold on various exchanges and otherwise publicly, according to CoinMarketCap. And as you can see here, the overall value of these cryptocurrencies today is more than 2 trillion. So it is making an impact on our financial systems. It is affecting different areas of our lives. And I think we need to be aware that this is probably something we can't avoid. And so I always come to things trying to just have a better understanding and a better education so I can feel more comfortable having those conversations. And cryptocurrencies leverage the power of blockchain and decentralized ledgers. And I think they are appealing to people for a number of reasons. For some, it's because they create an immutable record of transactions. There's no arguing with it. It's on a public blockchain. For others, it is the decentralized processing or potentially the security behind the underlying technology. And some also see value in being able to use it as a cross-border exchange. So, for those of you who've ever tried to send money internationally, you know how painful that is. The goal with some cryptocurrencies is to be able to reduce that time, reduce that friction in a number of different ways to make those types of transactions easier. So cryptocurrency is just one of many applications that are being powered by a paradigm shift in computing. I think early on we had mainframes, those were great. Then we decided we wanted to all be connected. We have a whole set of cloud computing and networked computing. I think what a lot of us have realized in many different ways, whether that's social media or whether that is cybersecurity risks, is that the internet does not work. It was developed with one goal in mind, and unfortunately, it has not proven as secure or as trustworthy as I think its original creators had hoped. And so cryptocurrency runs on top of this next generation of type of computing, public blockchains and distributed ledgers. And those are all about bringing trust, bringing visibility, and really shifting, that paradigm of compute so that you can have those types of attributes in your systems. Okay, so what is a distributed ledger? Why do we care? At its purest essence, it's a distributed network of computers. Each computer can participate in putting transactions on the network, and all participants get a copy of that ledger. So everybody can see it at any given time. They can see what's going on the ledger, and it's immutable. So one party cannot just decide, gosh, I'm going to, I'm going to change that transaction. It's shared. Everybody has to agree on it. They have to agree on how those were put onto the ledger. And so you have a very visible, visible way of showing what transactions happened. It's also time-stamped, and we'll get into a little bit more about why that's important going forward. Okay, so again, I want to emphasize that we're very early in the use of distributed ledgers and in the use of cryptocurrency. And I think, currency was the first application built on top of distributed ledgers. And first generation ledgers were definitely, they were definitely slow. They still are definitely slow. And so you're able to use them for things like Bitcoin, which, in some ways serves as a store of value. But if you think about sort of the real world equivalent, the one that Bitcoin is most commonly compared to is gold. And so most of us don't carry around a bunch of gold when we want to conduct transactions. It's heavy, it's slow, it's hard to secure, but a good first step. Then over time, as people started to realize, gosh, distributed ledgers could potentially do much more, we started to see them actually used as ledgers and started to see them being built to actually be used as ledgers. So for example, here, if you've ever gone through the process of buying a house or a piece of property, you know that you'll have to go through a title search, and the title search typically finds out, okay, historically, who has bought or sold this piece of property? Do they have any claim to it? What is the record there? And ledgers really aim to put all of that online and make that available and make that immutable. So you can imagine, instead of paying somebody to do a title search and having title insurance, you could then say, great, I now have a public record that cannot be, falsely edited, of who actually sold the property and who actually bought it. And so now I know who actually owns it. And this has a little bit more value, but we're still not to the point where this is a seamless set of transactions. And so the third generation that we're thinking about here evolves from not just currency and not just ledgers, but also contracts. And contracts require the ability to put business logic on the ledger as well. So when you want to have a transaction, you may want to say, great, I am going to buy this product when the price hits X dollars. All of that requires business logic to be able to be built into a system. And it requires a level of speed that first generations of distributed ledgers weren't able to provide. But we are now starting to see that used. And as you can imagine, contracts obviously then require you to have a ledger, and then they also require you to have some kind of currency that functions as fuel for the network. So when I want to run that contract, I need to make sure that I have a way to pay for and to sell things. And then finally, what we're starting to see emerge now are true distributed markets. So some of you may have heard of the term NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Those markets are starting to pop up and evolve, as are markets for other kinds of things, not just for digital assets. So markets require all the same kinds of technology and capabilities as the previous generations that have come before them, but they also require something known as fairness. So they require a mathematical guarantee that if I bid on an item, or if I'm trying to buy the hot new toy for Christmas, if I go to buy it first before somebody else, that I get that last toy. If I am playing a game and I am the shooter and somebody else says, hey, I ducked, that there's fairness in terms of the game can say, okay, you actually did that a fraction of a second before the other person. So there is a need for speed at this level that is just not available with earlier versions of distributed ledgers. But once you combine that speed, that programmability, an actual ledger, and then the cryptocurrency that runs on top of it, you do start to see these decentralized systems emerging. And one of the first areas that we're seeing that happen is in finance, and then the area of decentralized finance. So if you think about, now a true market, for example, a true decentralized stock market or a true decentralized bond market, or for any other kinds of assets, a fourth generation ledger based system will allow you to have things like fractional ownership. More people can buy in to whether it's to a stock or to a real estate asset or to something else, because there's that power to buy in very small increments and make that broadly accessible. As you can imagine, it will also make it more accessible across borders. I don't have to just have, an account denominated in dollars or won or any specific, fiat currency in order to participate in that market. And, going back to one of my earlier stories, if you think about cross-border payments, right, this is an area that is near and dear to me. I remember, my parents putting cash in an envelope to mail overseas, because trying to do that through a third-party provider or, a Western Union or somebody else who was going to send that money was expensive and slow and, quite a painful process. So you can see how, cryptocurrency as an application can underpin and be used in a lot of different systems that that we believe will be that next generation of finance systems and market systems and supply chain systems and all those kinds of things. All right, so now we're going to go back to just that first circle of cryptocurrency. And, I hope that the first part of this has given you a sense of why are people interested in it. Certainly there's speculative reasons, certainly there's people who dive in for a number of different, areas of interest. But, at the end of the day, as a technologist, I do believe that there are so many greater uses for cryptocurrency, and that's what gets me excited. And, I think the interesting part is, I mentioned there are, 10,000 cryptocurrencies listed on CoinMarketCap. Outside of some of the big ones, so I think you can buy Bitcoin on PayPal. Outside of that, it's very easy to mint a cryptocurrency. It's actually very easy to create a digital cryptocurrency. The hard part is actually getting people to use it and getting it adopted by the market. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what that financial ecosystem looks like and what some of the different parts of that ecosystem are, just so that if you do decide to dip your toe in the water, you have a sense of some of the areas that you should consider and look at, and so it doesn't seem quite so overwhelming. So this is just going to scratch the surface, but it gives you some buckets to think about when you are going into that. And for example, if you are in a role in your company where you're being asked to look at things like, hey, do we hold cryptocurrency in case of a ransomware attack? Typically you will engage with a third-party provider to help you with that. But I think it's important to have an understanding of some of the questions to ask those kinds of providers, so that you're not going into it blind, and you can get a better sense of what are their processes, what are their security procedures, what kinds of things do they have in place, so you don't have to blindly trust them. All right. So the first bucket that I have here is wallets. And I think, there's an exact equivalent in the real world. When you mint a cryptocurrency, you then have to think about, gosh, how do I get it into people's hands? How do people actually hold it? And so there are some wallets that hold multiple different currencies. If you are an emerging cryptocurrency, a lot of times you will either have to create your own wallet, or you'll have to work with a wallet provider to say, yes, I will then support your cryptocurrency. And if you, if you have a currency, anyone who wants to buy it and hold it in your wallet or transfer it into your wallet can keep it there. So wallets in and of themselves, though, don't, they are literally just that. They can come in software format. So you can have a mobile wallet or a desktop wallet. And then you can also have a hardware wallet, which is literally a dongle that you plug into your computer. You do your transaction, you take it out, and you put it away somewhere safe, and it is not connected to the internet. So a lot of times if people are holding large amounts of cryptocurrency, they want to think about both a hot wallet that's connected to the internet, a software wallet, as well as a hardware wallet that literally can be unplugged. Then if you want to do anything more than just hold the currency, we see exchanges, and exchanges are places where people can buy, sell, and literally obviously exchange cryptocurrency. So the real world equivalent here is, your stockbroker, wherever you hold your other assets. And these exchanges, have different fee structures. They have different security requirements. And so that's something to consider if you are evaluating exchanges. If you have created a cryptocurrency similar to wallets, you have to work with these exchanges to get listed. So they don't just automatically list any cryptocurrency. There's back-end software work that has to be done. APIs have to be connected, and they have to say, great, like now I'm going to list your cryptocurrency. There's also rules around which exchanges can be utilized by participants in different geographies. So here in the US, most of the exchanges have to run all customers through a KYC AML process, know your customer, anti-money laundering. So don't be surprised if an exchange asks you for all kinds of identification, perhaps notarization, the kinds of things to establish that you are who you say you are, and that you will be trading in a manner that they have said, hey, this is what we need you to comply with. This is the sort of set of rules that we need to be reporting on and need you to work within. And then the final bucket here, if you are thinking about holding, larger sums of cryptocurrency, one thing I do want to note is that it's different from holding, fiat or cash. There is no FDIC equivalent right now for cryptocurrency. So there's no insurance. Well, there is insurance, but there's no product that an exchange says, yes, we'll guarantee, nothing happens. Similarly, if you're holding it in a wallet, you really have to sort of own your own private and public keys. There's a lot that the owner takes on in terms of the onus to make sure that your cryptocurrency is secured. So there is an emerging market of both new players in the space that are providing custody, as well as existing banks and financial institutions that are starting to provide custody. And that basically serves as another layer of security. They, again, potentially put your crypto into cold storage. And they do things to sort of add a layer of security on top of your holdings. A couple of other players in the space that are not mentioned in here, more and more financial institutions are offering crypto to their regular customers. So you'll start to see that, potentially offered somewhere there. You're also seeing some companies holding crypto on their balance sheets. And so some people are looking for exposure to cryptocurrency assets by just holding the stocks of companies that they then hold crypto on their balance sheets. Again, this is not financial advice, but this is just to share the different ways that people are getting exposure to cryptocurrency. And then finally, I think for people who have been in the space or sort of have been hearing about, the environmental costs of cryptocurrencies, I would encourage you to check out a recent report from University College London. They took a look at, again, first generation cryptocurrencies, very compute intensive, right? They require a lot of compute power, therefore they require a lot of energy. Newer generations of cryptocurrencies don't require that same amount of energy, and some of them actually purchase carbon offsets so that their networks are carbon neutral or carbon negative. And so if that is an area that is of concern to you, I would encourage you to do more research here to focus on what you might be comfortable with in terms of their impact on the environment. And then, in terms of additional resources, there are certainly resources at CoinDesk and CoinMarketCap and Cointelegraph and other places where you can do more research if this is exciting to you. And I've also included my email on here. If anybody has questions, I'm always happy to answer them. And Mandy and Denise and team, thank you.